Okay, so welcome to week 6 of Intro to Living Ayurveda and Yoga. I was very excited on Sunday to see so many of you join me for the live question and answer session, as well as we had the topic of the three gunas, which are the sattva, tamas, and rajas. So if you weren't able to join me on Sunday, I missed you, but my thoughts were with you. I encourage you to watch that video because there's a lot of new information. And it occurred to me after Sunday, after we met, that I talk a lot about ghee, and I had some questions from some of you after that on ghee. So I thought it would be great to share a presentation and teach you how to make ghee. I've been making mine, excuse me, making my own for at least 3 or 4 years. It can be store-bought. It is a little expensive. It can be cheaper to make, and it just comes out much better, even if the expense is about the same. So I want to share that with you today, as well as some benefits of ghee. And let me start by sharing my presentation of ghee. Okay, so here we go. So ghee, I consider as liquid gold, and it looks like liquid gold when you make it before it starts to solidify a little bit. It's such a beautiful, beautiful product. I can't say enough about it. So let's talk about what it actually is. I might have already mentioned this, but let's talk about it anyways. So in the Western world, ghee is actually known as clarified butter. If you're an experienced cook or chef, you likely know what clarified butter is because it's oftentimes used in really fancy restaurants and cooks. It's made from butter by cooking out the water and the milk solids. Those are the milk solids are hard to digest. They're the cholesterol forming proteins. So it becomes almost lactose free as well. I can't say it's 100%, but it's very close to removing all the sugars and the proteins out. So it becomes pretty virtually lactose free. It can, like I mentioned, can be bought in most grocery stores. I've even seen it at Market Basket. I think it is a little bit cheaper, although butter does seem to be going up lately in price. But it really, truly, especially over time, making it tastes so much better than the store-bought. There's such a quality difference. And also just the satisfaction of making it yourself. It's a fun process. I personally love to cook. It's one of my favorite things to do other than yoga and Ayurveda, but it's a big part of Ayurveda. So I'm constantly cooking, and I almost use it as a form of meditation oftentimes when I'm doing the process of making ghee. So it takes about 30 to 40 minutes, give or take, from beginning to end. So it doesn't take a huge amount of your time. And Ayurveda recognizes it as being one of the most important medicines in Ayurveda. They don't put much on a pedestal because everything is a medicine, everything is a poison, depending on who the person is. But they do put ghee on, they really do revere it. Not quite on that pedestal because nothing is there, but it is very highly revered. It is used as a carrier oil. In Sanskrit, that's anupana, oftentimes with different herbs. And what it does is it carries it deeper into the tissues, helps to nourish better. And the effects of the herb that you might use it with becomes actually more potent and more effective. So let's talk about the gunas, the taste, and the doshas related to ghee, how that is, or what those are. So the gunas, it's oily, liquid, it's heavy, cold, and it's also a sattvic food, which is that pure food that we are looking more to just bring ourselves into a more sattvic mode or mental state. As far as taste, it's the sweet taste. So it's a building food. It's oil. All oils are sweet. And the doshas, so it pacifies vata and pitta. Vata, I've highlighted in here, red. As a vata person, it's just my go-to for everything, not just in cooking, but I use it on my skin quite frequently because it's so super nourishing and digestible even through the skin. If you have dry skin, your skin is just going to gobble it up and love it, and you will have beautiful, healthy, glowing skin. It can be aggravating for kapha. So kapha is the dosha that needs to be careful with foods that have the gunas, the oily, the liquid, the heavy, the cold, because that is largely what kapha is. So in small amounts, especially if using it as a medicine in the sense of taking herbs, it can be used, but you'd really want to use high moderation, very small amounts here for kapha people, especially if there's an imbalance in kapha. So some of the benefits of ghee, look at this beautiful liquid gold on the screen. It's easy to digest. It deeply nourishes the tissues. It kindles digestion, so it helps to build agni so that we can digest other foods. And oftentimes when eaten with other foods, it can make the other foods more digestible as well, because you've got that easy with maybe something hard or more difficult to digest. So it helps to break it down. It builds good ojas. So if you've watched the ojas video, you know that that's healthy tissue. That's the supreme high quality leftover substance from the processing of all of our food. And if you were to wonder what ojas might actually look like, it actually looks like ghee. It's that creamy gold substance, that liquid gold. So awesome to build ojas for somebody who's deficient. It supports a balanced and a robust metabolism. Can be used as food or externally, which I've already mentioned, highly nourishing for the skin. It is ideal for cooking, sauteing, and frying. It has a high smoke point and it stays intact, meaning that there's certain oils, for example, olive oil is a great oil, but not an oil you should be cooking with, because once you start to heat it, it becomes very toxic and rancid, and the molecular value, the proteins start to change and become foreign. That doesn't happen with ghee. It's going to stay in its natural state, and it will actually start to absorb the different properties and gunas of your food, and again, make things more digestible. So it stays intact. It's perfect for cooking with. And another nice thing is it doesn't need to be refrigerated. It has a long shelf life. You can refrigerate it. You can also freeze it, but if you're using it frequently, there's really no need to do that. If you're not going to use it for a year, you might choose to put it in the fridge, but again, it's got a long shelf life. So let's talk about how to make ghee. So this is time I mentioned, approximately 40 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes from beginning to end. So it's not a huge amount of time. There's not a lot of preparation before. All you need is a medium saucepan, a cheesecloth, or a fine mesh strainer. And if you can see the picture of me here, I use this little metal mesh strainer. So you've got to have very, very tiny holes because you're going to be straining out the milk solids. And then somewhere between 1 to 2 pounds of organic butter, if possible, cultured butter. So the organic is really important here, because when you cook the ghee, it becomes super concentrated. And if you're using ghee that is not organic, all of the pesticides, the antibiotics, or all of that bad stuff in your butter is going to become concentrated and become extremely toxic for the body. I also did not put here, but it should be unsalted butter as well, which you can see in the picture here. Cultured ideally is best. It just gives it a better flavor. This is a picture of the butter that I actually use. I find at Market Basket. I've used many, many different types of organic ghee, organic butter, and they all taste good, but this is my favorite personally. It just comes out in that super creamy, dreamy, awesome tasting ghee. And so the picture here on the right of your screen is me just starting the process of making the ghee, putting it in the saucepan at a low temperature. So you want to cook it on a low setting. You need to be careful with butter that you're not boiling it. the ghee is actually going to sound like it's boiling even when it's on a low setting, and that's just the water evaporating out. It's that popping noise, almost like a boiling, but you don't want to set it on a medium to high heat because then it will boil. It's going to splatter all over the place and could create a grease fire. So you really want to allow it to just slow cook, but you want to be able to get enough so that you've got some bubbles there. And we're going to watch a little video here in a moment. The the butter will start to foam. So that's kind of the beginning process. It matures through several different stages as it cooks, and it's kind of fun to watch. It'll start out looking really cloudy, like in the first slide, when the butter just really starts to melt. And then it becomes opaque and foamy, as you can see in the picture here on the side. Eventually it'll become clear, which we'll look at that picture, or actually a video of that in a moment. And as I mentioned, you'll hear this fizzing, popping sound, and it can be pretty loud. It actually sounds like it's bubbling, but it's not. It's that water, once again, that is boiling off. And it's going to, once after it's clear, starts to become clear, it's going to be a very deep, deep golden brown. So I want you to, or I want me to, not you, I'm going to play a little video here that I made. And it's really just meant to hear the sound more than anything. So here we have some ghee cooking. I just want you to hear the noise that you might expect when making ghee. Sounds like an intense bubbling, but as long as you're not on a very high temperature, that's most important. Okay, we'll be back with pictures and videos of the final. Okay, so that's just the beginning stages of the cooking process. It'll foam up, and just let that foam stay there, and it's eventually going to solidify, and most of it will sink to the bottom of the pan. You might have a little remaining at the top, but you're going to strain it anyways. Also important through the whole process, you never ever stir the ghee. Just let it do its thing. So once the ghee is clear and the milk solids have sunk into the bottom of the pan, you want to turn your stove off and then strain fairly immediately. It strains best when it's super hot, using either that cheesecloth or any type of very fine mesh strainer. I do suggest metal. The plastic ones could potentially actually melt the plastic, and we definitely don't want that to happen, right? We don't want our plastic in our ghee. I generally make 2 pounds at a time. I use a lot of ghee, as you can probably tell. It makes about 4 8-ounce jars, which you can see here pictured. Those are my final product. And know that making ghee is an art. It's much like making bread, which is definitely an art, and cooking in general is an art. So know that if your first batch it doesn't come out the way you think it should, over time, practice. Again, practice makes permanent, and you will get the hang of it. Enjoy the process of it. And the more you do it, the better it comes out. And then we're going to watch another quick video. This is the ending, towards the end of the process. Okay, so this is what ghee starts to look like as it becomes very close to being done. You might start to see some particles floating up on the top. If you slightly tip your pan here, you can see that there's a whole bunch of particles that have floated to the bottom of the pan. That's the milk solids that we're going to strain out once the ghee is completed. So it's starting to look a little more clear once you can actually see through the ghee and see the bottom of the pan, and before those milk solids start to burn, maybe just a light golden brown is nice, your ghee is done. And the bubbling will also slow down as well. Okay, great. So lastly, I mentioned that it's a carrier oil, so you can use it with different herbs to make their effects more potent, as well as going deeper into the tissues. So I oftentimes, in more more lately than not, because of this dry, cold weather, and I'm very Vata. I tend to even eat more ghee. So I oftentimes mix it with herbs. This is with ashwagandha here. All right, so that's it for today. I look forward to seeing you back here soon for our next lectures. Enjoy making your ghee.